Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday night. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm just going to keep it positive tonight. We know there's a lot going on and a lot of it's not good. I said a good bit a couple weeks ago, several weeks ago, thanks to everyone who's contacted me about the episode that I did on True Story, but also sort of contextualized it with what has been going on in America and elsewhere. So we're going to keep it positive tonight. It's one of my favorite subjects. We're going to talk about Mothman, this 16-year journey that I've been on. I have a nice PowerPoint for you, slightly different than the one that I did at the Mothman Festival a couple weeks ago, which, by the way, was a terrific success. I'm wearing a t-shirt here, Phenomenology Research Professionals, my good friends and colleagues, Jackie and Bill Kouslis, who have been on Into the Outer Realms twice. They are the authors of Bridging the Tragedy. They interviewed a whole bunch of people who were connected in some way with the collapse of the Silver Bridge, December 15th, 1967. I will touch on that tonight. The presentation is also different too, because the Into the Outer Realms audience is intimately aware and familiar with what happened to Tanya and I. We've done episodes on it. We've talked a lot about it in context, been on all kinds of other radio shows and podcasts. We've talked about it, showed the pictures. So I took out a lot of that stuff so I could slow the narrative down, as we writers say, and really talk about some other things that I had to kind of not rush through, but in the time that I had at the Mothman Festival. So I'm going to roll the opening music by our son Jeremy, who started his junior year at Berklee College of Music a couple of days ago, this past Monday. Very, very proud of Jeremy. His composing, his film score composing is just going next level, and it's wonderful to see the time that he's putting in with these amazing teachers at Berklee and the results that are coming out. So it's amazing. So here is that. I'll come back. I'll bring up the PowerPoint. I'm going to be real small so the PowerPoint can be big, and I will take you through my journey with Mothman, but even more importantly, with Point Pleasant, West Virginia. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon, the preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms. It's good to hear Tanya's voice there with me. It is not a done deal yet, but I will tell you that Tanya and I are getting back into field investigation. She had a wonderful experience at the Mothman Festival. She sold a lot of her cryptid art. Definitely follow her on Facebook, Instagram, Tanya Madia, Tonyamadia. It sold well. People's eyes lit up. They absolutely loved it. Everything you want as an artist, that sort of visceral, immediate, very enthusiastic reaction to our, like I said, she sold a bunch of it. It's getting into stores now. We plan to be at different festivals and conferences. We were just invited to one in Litchfield
Chicago area, Litchfield, Illinois, for next September. We're making an appearance. We're doing a book talk. We're doing a private investigation that we've invited to in a book talk at the end of October, right after I get back from Boulder City, Nevada, where I'm doing my pirate show. We're going to go straight to West Virginia from the Pittsburgh airport. We're going to do that. We're going to do our book talk, The Art and Craft and Modern Investigation. Rosemary Ellen Guiley referred to us as Renaissance investigators, Tanya and I had forgotten that. And the person who booked us invited us to their bookstore. It's a ticketed event. If you're in West Virginia in the Monongalia, Marion County area, we're going to be advertising that. We're very excited to do that. Point is, I'm hoping that Tanya will rejoin me at least some of the time, every once in a while, on Into the Outer Realms, especially this winter, so we can get back to talking about these things. But in the meantime, I'm going to alternate. This really could be an everyday as a story, all its own episode as well, but I could only really choose one branding. So I went with the Into the Outer Realms. It's good to see some old friends who really moved toward this. Hi, Candace. So Candace says, got me a beautiful piece from Tanya Medea. Absolutely. So again, go to her page, or you can, if you're right here on my Facebook page, I'm sharing a lot of her posts. You can see her artwork. It is really, really cool. Our daughter Jo is involved in some of the digital work. No AI, none, zero, zip, but some beautiful digital stuff that Jolie is doing to Tanya's drawings and the digital work that Tanya's doing. So anyway, write in, call the station, call Tanya's agent, whatever you need to do. You know what I mean, metaphorically. Let's get her back on the show, because those are really, really good days. I'm sure you will all agree. So I'm going to bring up this PowerPoint. Again, I did this a couple weeks ago at the Mothman Festival. Did a presentation slightly altered, like I said, but here it is. And I am going to, like I said, I am going to make myself small and make it big. There you go. So Mothman and Me, our creative journey so far an homage to Supernatural, a show that I absolutely love. Joe, are you still watching it? Anybody else there in the audience? It had some rough patches there. Season 7 was terrible and some other things, but it went, I think, 13 seasons and ended strongly. So anyway, that's that so far. They would always say the journey so far. And it really is. There's a lot of really exciting stuff. Yeah, Joe's working his way through the series. So let's get started here. I have some notes, but I'm going to look at these pictures. I know all this pretty well. It goes back 16 years. How it all began was in about 2006 at a Blockbuster. I bought a used copy of The Mothman Prophecies, the film based on John Keel's book. Here it is now, and it's enhanced. I'm going to bring myself up big here just for a second to show you this. Signed by the man himself, Richard Hotham, the screenwriter, a nicer guy you will never meet. He was enthusiastic. He was generous. Here you go. Well, I'll have to bring this up again here just for a second. There he is. He and I, for our art radio friends on Wednesday night, you just got to come check out. I love that you're listening to the audio only, but this is a real visual one. So you can look at it at YouTube. You can look at it on my Facebook page, the Into the Out of the Realms page. But there we are. And look at that. Richard bought a copy of Mothman Was Here. So it was pretty cool. After watching his film 30 times now, he has my book, and I hope he gets just maybe even a fifth of the joy, the pleasure that I've gotten out of his film adaptation all these years. Okay, so let's get this big. So that's how it started. So we watched that. So a couple of years later, we moved to West Virginia, and we're about 2.5 hours away from Point Pleasant, where the events originally took place in 1966. And we're living in this house that we had built in a holler in West Virginia. I called it New Walton's Mountain. You went up this 300-foot driveway. Winter is terrible. It was terrible, which is why we ultimately sold it. But we had a sweat lodge on the property, and there were portals on the property, and Rosemary Ellen Guiley and other investigators came and studied what was going on there. And it was just really, really cool. So we're living in the holler, and Tanya says, listen, the Point Pleasant Mothman Museum is only 2.5, 2 hours and 40 minutes away. We should go there. And I was very resistant for a long time. Probably, I would have to say probably almost 2 years, really, about 2 years. I didn't want to do it. Like, okay, I liked the Mothman Prophecies movie. I liked it really as a movie. I liked it for Laura Linney and Will Patton, especially. I think it's the best work that Richard Gere has ever done, quite frankly. Alan Bates was amazing in it. Mark Pellington did a terrific, terrific job shooting it. It's just visually great. I listened to the soundtrack over and over and over again. Many Mothman Prophecies enthusiasts like Bill Kuslis love the soundtrack as well. So finally she talks me into it. So we get into the car. This is August 22nd, 2009. We're road tripping to Point Pleasant. Now, those of you who don't know, Point Pleasant is a small town. In its heyday, it was 5,000 or 6,000 people before the bridge collapsed. Now, depending on who you talk to, it's between like 3,000 and 4,000, but it's really enjoying yet another very exciting renaissance, which I'll talk about just a little at the end, the little bit that I can. So we make our way to Point Pleasant. Now, it's interesting that it's Point Pleasant because I grew up in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I'm going home to a town right near it, Manasquan, to visit my parents. It's been a long time. I'm going early November. And so I was like, I love the fact that there was this overlap of names. So anyway, we go, and it is really a town, a place out of time, is what I call it here in the PowerPoint at the presentation. And it's true. I don't like expressions like the town that time forgot or anything like that, but it very much is a place out of time. There is a author who I've had on the show named Carl Petrie. Carl Petrie has a gift where he can spontaneously go into another time, another dimension, and visit that. The place is there where he is, but suddenly it's 50 years or 80 years earlier. Rosemary's publishing company, now under the guidance of her husband, Joe, Visionary Living, has published, I think, 3 of Carl's books. He's been on the show to talk about 2 of them. Carl said that right on Main Street in Point Pleasant, there are like 2 dimensions that butt up against each other. And I believe that this is a place. So I have some of the monuments there. Chief Cornstalk Monument there in the middle. Chief Cornstalk was murdered by angry U.S. troops after a terrible, very bloody exchange. Logan's Mingos attacked whites attacked the natives, and then there on the left, that's the Battle of Point Pleasant. Some say in 1775 that this was the first battle of the American Revolution. I don't really see that, but it was definitely an idea. And this Western Virginia at the time, obviously not a state till the U.S. Civil War, this Western Virginia, so close to Fort Pitt, was a highly contested area, and that was called Lord Dunmore's War. So you had Pennsylvania, which was a British colony, you had Virginia, which was a British colony, you had French interests, all kinds of things going on. I don't have a picture of it here, but there's a French plate. Once upon a time, all you had to do was go to a shore of an unclaimed area, drop a literal plate that said, "We were here first. I claim this for the King of France." Blah blah blah, nana nana nana, and that plate is still there in Two Indy Way Park. Of course, there's the famous Bob Roach statue, one of those things in the world that has probably had thousands, if not tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, of pictures taken, and it's amazing. It's it's a very fantastical rendering, as many of the renderings of the Mothman are, but it's something you definitely need to see. Hi, Amy. Good evening. So we decide to stay at the Low Hotel. The Low Hotel right now is currently closed, but the Low goes all the way back about 120 years or so. Historic. It is haunted. We've had some really cool experiences there. The owners were never shy about that. The new owners, who are putting a lot of money into it, but it will be a boutique experience, hopefully opening in about 18 months. for the 2027 Mothman Festival, certainly. But it's amazing that it's being refurbished. An absolutely beautiful place. Tanya and I stayed there, probably a couple dozen times. The owners were so generous, very arts oriented, wonderful. So we go to the Low Hotel, really cool, another really neat place out of time. Now, this is Carolyn Harris. And we lost Carolyn on December 26, 2016. It was Tanya's and I's wedding anniversary, day after Christmas, when we got the news. Carolyn was one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. Carolyn suffered a tragedy that she never really talked publicly about very much at all, certainly not on the documentaries and all, but her estranged husband and her young son, who was 3 years old, Timmy, were killed when the Silver Bridge collapsed. Carolyn was like out of time. She had the beehive haircut. Her sister Marcella, whose daughter and granddaughter I met and gave a copy of Mothman, was here too during the festival. Marcella was wonderful. Carolyn was one of the first people we met in August of 2009, and we ate at the Mothman Diner, as it was called, really Harris's Steakhouse. And you can get a little bit of it, some of the parts and pieces of it, the soda fountain counter, some of the seats, things like that are in the Mothman Museum, which is wonderful. Jess Walmsley, who runs that museum, honoring Carolyn's memory. She was just one of a kind, and just one of several losses that I'll talk about tonight, of people that were instrumental going all the way back to 2009 with our experience in Point Pleasant. So I was immediately taken, and to this day I am, and anybody who saw all my posts about the Mothman Festival saw that I posted a ton of pictures of the Railroad Truss Bridge, the Silver Memorial Bridge, which is about 1.5 miles upriver from where the Silver Bridge was, the tugs, the barges, sunset, sunrise, you can find me there. The Ohio River, where it comes together with the Kanawha River, where the waters mingle, as reporter Mary Heyer in the 1960s she wrote for the Athens Messenger, and that's what her column was called. Very, very powerful. Those paranormal researchers who are out there, you know that geography plays a great part. Water is very, very powerful as far as paranormal events, and where those two rivers come together, where the Battle of Point Pleasant was, highly contested land, is extremely, extremely powerful. Joe says, I saw them. The festival Main Street looked like Mardi Gras on Bourbon Street. Yeah, absolutely. Just an absolutely wild, wild place. And everyone should check it out. There were 32,000 people in a town of about 4,000, 32,000 people 2 weekends ago at the Mothman Festival. It was amazing. 27,000 came through to check things out, listen to the speakers, buy product, art, books, enjoy the carnival atmosphere, which is a little bit of a carnival atmosphere now. A lot of cosplay. Fallout 76 has really elevated Point Pleasant. Those who are enthusiasts about that video game, you know, it's all about West Virginia. Of course, Mothman is in there, star of the show. So Point Pleasant, West Virginia is my soul place. It really, really is. And then again, there was a tragedy. So there's all this history, flooding, rumors of curses when Cornstalk was murdered. I assure you, the town was never under a curse, although it did have a run of very, very bad luck. And on December 15th, 1967, 46 people lost their lives. An absolutely terrible bridge tragedy. It was an I-bar suspension bridge. There were only 3 in the world, one in Brazil, another one in West Virginia, and this one. And when they were designed in the 1920s, and when they opened up, they just didn't count on giant semi or tractor trailers and a lot of traffic. There was a light, so a lot of weight would be on that bridge, and they just didn't account for that 40 years later. They just didn't know that was going to happen. A hairline fracture due to rust developed, and when it came down in about a minute or a little more. About 5 o'clock in the evening on December 15th, it folded like a deck of cards. Some people said it just, when that one went the way it was. Now, it was a bridge that was designed for movement. John Keel, the Fortean researcher who is intimately involved with Mothman and of course wrote the Mothman Prophecies, 1975, called it that rickety old bridge. So I make reference of that in the book. I've mentioned the book several times, and I think I've shown it on the show. So here I'll come up big again. But Mothman was here. It's selling well. Sold a ton of copies. It's available at the Mothman Museum now. It's available in the Thrifty Mountaineer in Morgantown. Hopefully, it'll be available a lot of other places. But check it out. I think it's the best novel that I ever read. Pay homage to a lot of people in here. Some by name, people like Keel, Mary Heyer, Gray Barker, who are very well known, Lyndon and Lady Bird Johnson, who were lighting. Interesting factoid, kind of chilling here. Two things about when the bridge went down. First of all, it was 13 months to the day of the Mallet Scarberry sightings of Mothman that really kicked everything off. Now, to be clear, there were sightings of these cryptids, of these birds, of these Mothman-like beings. I got to see a really good friend who I haven't seen in a while, Phil Reynolds, at the Mothman Festival. A very, very good researcher, has worked with MUFON, just wrote an article about Mothman for them. And as Phil so rightly reminds us, lots of different kinds of interdimensional beings were being seen at that time. Some of them all kind of amalgamated and morphed into the Mothman. That's why Tanya and I are very, very careful to say what we saw August 22nd, 2019. There's no reason to believe it was the Mothman, but it was certainly an interdimensional being. So when you have this very, very active portal area, you have power plants, you have the two rivers that come together, you have this multi-dimensional area, as Carl Petrie describes it. And Tanya and I, experienced that at the Webb Library, where one night there were three groups. There was the living group, there was a group of ghosts and spirits, and there was another dimension where they were not aware of each other at all. So these things do happen. They're fascinating. It's always great to get corroboration from researchers that we respect. Carl was very close with Joe and Rosemary, very, very highly respected. Honored to have him on the show twice. Okay, so an unexpected adventure begins. So we get to town. It's very out of time. I love the old courthouse. I love the old post office. It is your classic Main Street. You can see a little bit of that vibe right there in these pictures. And I was like, this is great. I don't even have to go to the museum. But of course we did. We saw all the cool stuff, the props. Laura Linney, so tiny. See her jacket, her police jacket, and the props, parts and pieces, lights and foam pieces of, supposed to be macadam from the bridge, the phone from the room, all kinds of really cool things, autographed stuff, and learned a lot in the time that we were in the museum about the Mothman and the larger story of what went on in Point Pleasant in 1966. And I was like, this is amazing. That's this little town that had 22 churches, no bars whatsoever, about 6,000 working class, salt of the earth people should see this 7-8 foot winged being. Tom Urey saw something that was almost like a pterodactyl. People have seen these prehistoric type birds. There was the Men in Black. There were UFOs. It seemed every day there was some report of a UFO, and it was just amazing. I was immediately taken in that day, 16 years ago now, by the whole thing. So we leave the museum and we have a map of something called the TNT area. The formal name of it is the McClintock Wildlife Refuge. McClintock Wildlife Refuge is a super fun site. But prior to that, World War II, they made TNT, hence the name TNT area. So there were all these buildings. There were two power plants, the North Power Plant, the South Power Plant, all these kinds of buildings, rumors of things underground, maybe other things going on, perhaps chemical contamination from the TNT being made and all of that kind of stuff. Mutated fish. Was the Mothman some kind of mutation that came out of the ponds and all of these kinds of things? We don't know. But anyway, we have these maps, and inside it is about 100 what they call igloos, concrete igloos. And they look very much like igloos. I'll show you a picture in just a little bit. But I was amazed by that when they originally said it. I was like, oh, dang, man. Like now we got igloos like in the middle of the summer in this little town, West Virginia. But anyway, so we were going to go check them out. We go to the store in the middle there, The Point, and we meet a guy who looks like Elvis and Johnny Cash have had a love child. You want to talk about out of time. His name was Bob Landrum. I don't have a picture of Bob, but that's him. He's immortalized on the flood wall in the Battle of Point Pleasant. So that's Bob there to the right. And you can see a little bit. You can see his good pork chop sideburns. And he had a nice DA in the back and a good pompadour going. Hard box of cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve. Man, he is the thing. Big old belt buckle. He was an over-the-road trucker, and he had this really cool combination of indigenous Native American stuff and Point Pleasant type stuff, and it was called The Point. So we talked to Bob. We said, oh, we have this map. We're going to go out to the TNT area. Shows us this cool picture of an orb outside Igloo 2, as it's called. And he says, you see anything there? Tanya immediately says a face. He says that it's a Native American chief, Shawnee, I believe. And we just didn't know what to make of it. So we buy some sage. We say, okay, Bob's like, this is native burial ground. You know, there's no really proof of that. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Good to see you. And so anyway, so we leave The Point. We go down and we go down Route 62 out of town, make a couple of turns, and we wind up at the TNT area igloos. Now, I had a digital camera. I didn't think to take a picture, but the sky was blue, kind of like even more blue than above that picture down in the lower right-hand corner, above the igloo there. Just picture puzzle blue. The pond was very clean, looked like something out of Ducks Unlimited. Beautiful day. It was in the 80s. It's, August 22nd. But we have this intense feeling of being watched. And I grew up in the Pine Barrens, or near the Pine Barrens in New Jersey, grew up on tales of the Jersey Devil. My father may have seen the Jersey Devil. One night he had a very odd experience. He was working a late shift at a trucking yard, was sitting on the back of a truck having his lunch, and saw a very, very odd thing. So I was intimately aware. I'd spent a ton of time in the woods, in the Poconos, and playing in burned out houses in the woods where I used to live in Wayne, New Jersey. Wayne, New Jersey, my childhood. Things stand by me, and that was my childhood. And yet this terrible feeling, which come to find out later, John Keel called the zone of fear. So the electromagnetics are just way the heck out of whack. Things are spiking in what he calls the super spectrum. And I was having a very, very strong reaction. Tanya felt uncomfortable as well. So we go in igloo number 1, snap a couple pictures. It's very cool. The echo in there is amazing. High domed ceiling, steel door, low light in there. And you can see kind of one of them there is a pretty good amount of light, typically not that much light. Graffiti everywhere that people have spray painted over the years. They used to shine the lights in the igloos when they were kids in the 1960s and blare their radios and have dance parties in there, which must have been really cool with the distortions and all. We go from igloo 1 to igloo 2. I can only stick my arm in. I feel really uncomfortable. I can barely stick my arm in the steel door that's open a little bit and snap a picture or two. And unfortunately, all those pictures that we took that day are lost. They're just gone. But anyway, and then we start to move towards igloo 3, and I get violently ill, like serious dry heaves. Of course, what was happening was the electromagnetic energy between those two was just spiking so amazingly that it was actually making me physically ill. So anyway, and this is stuff that we found. We're just in it. This is all stuff that we learned after the fact, what was going on. But so we get in the car. We were there maybe all of 15 minutes. We're driving back towards town after this amazing experience. We suddenly look at each other on 62, and at the same time, in the same exact way, we say, "Did you see that?" I apologize. That should be an exclamation point and not the Roman numeral 1. I just noticed that I did this. And this really did change everything. August 22nd, 2009 completely changed our lives through a series of events. Now, if Tanya and I hadn't turned to each other and said that, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I don't know what I would be doing. It wouldn't be this. I wouldn't have written Mothman Was Here. We wouldn't have written Roommates from Beyond and Watch Out from the Hallway. None of that, I believe, would have happened. But because we said that, we had to stop for a second because we both saw something. We saw something over the road in this picture puzzle blue sky for a split second, but we had both seen it, which meant we were having either a joint hallucination or we saw something real. Either way, fascinating. And this voice comes out of me. I mean, my voice, but an intuition, an impulse that came from somewhere inside of me that wasn't me. And I said, "Don't tell me what you saw, and I won't tell you what I saw. We need to go somewhere quiet, and we need to draw it." So we get back into town, and we're expecting it to be somewhere around 2:45 or so is what we're expecting. But it's weird because the town is empty. It's not like it is now. 2009, the Renaissance was just it was just getting started after Mothman Prophecies movie came out in 2002. The festival was still really small. And anyway, so we go back to the Point. If you remember that, Bob Landrum's place, right? Elvis and Johnny Cash love child. And it's closed. Really, really odd to be closed like a little before 3:00. And this is a time, 2009, where I think Tanya had a cell phone. I did not have a cell phone, not until several years later. And we weren't looking at the clock all the time. So I see a little light on and I see someone moving in the back room, in the storeroom. I should tell you that next to Igloo 2, we had left the Sage. So we wanted to tell Bob, and he had said to us, "Hey, man, if anything, interesting happens, like come back and be sure you tell me." So we're like, "Okay, let's do that. Let's tell him." We'll have to talk around what the thing was, but we can at least talk about what went on at the Igloos and all. So he opens up the door and I said, "Wow, you roll up the sidewalks really early here." And he said, "Well, not so much." And I said, "Well, it's early. It's like mid-afternoon." He said, "What time do you think it is?" I said, "It's probably around 2:45. And he said, "No, man, it's like 5:15. What? So 2.5 hours? Like, what is going on?" So anyway, we told Bob about the weird feeling and this and that. We may have shown him the pictures on the digital camera. I don't remember. And he says, "Look, there are these two guys I know, John and Tim Frick. They're researchers from the area, fairly well known. And they might be very interested in this. So next time I see them, I'll give them your information if you want." So I said, "Yeah, here's my card. Nice to meet you, everything." I think Tanya and I bought a few things. But we were anxious to go. So we went to what was called the Iron Gate restaurant. The Iron Gate's been closed for a number of years now. It was a very cool place, but now it's being rehabbed into a brewery as part of this really big revitalization involving 13 buildings, millions upon millions of dollars. It's a very exciting time. And I might be involved with some of it, which could be very cool. So this is what Tanya and I draw. Now, Tanya and I, anybody who knows us, know that we're very different and we're very complementary. And that's why it's been 28 years of a pretty darn good relationship, very complementary. And yet we drew almost the same exact thing. We both saw cornfields on both sides, but interestingly enough, we only drew the cornfields on the right. We both drew the road. We drew this being that looks almost exactly the same no matter how you look at it. And a very interesting thing happened. Mark, I hope you're still with us. Mark invited me to be on his show about a month before the Mothman Festival. And he said, there's going to be another guest, and her name is Linda Sigmund. She had an experience probably with Mothman, but certainly with a UFO and some kind of interdimensional being in 1967. And she's written a book. So I just want to show you this book here real quick, Beyond the Pale Moonlight. It's got some of the great artwork of Mark Randall. Tanya bought some of his artwork on the wall behind me. There's a bunch of artwork from Mark that I've collected over the years. A really, really nice guy, Mark. So Mark put Linda and I together, and it was wonderful. Not only was it a great show, I listened intently. I bought and read Linda's book. I listened to her testimony. It made so much sense with ours. But check this out. I gotta make this big again. So here. So in Linda's book, she draws this side-by-side comparison. Very, very interesting, especially with mine there on the left, but even with Tanya's, because Tanya and I, we described it a different way. Tanya saw it on the left side of the road and it leapt almost like a deer. Remember the deer thing because it's very interesting. And I always described it as it looked like a man who was being shot out of a cannon in a neoprene wetsuit. A very weird, oddly specific thing to say. And I think that was purposeful because now over the past 16 years, in Brent Rains's John Keel book, in many of the other things I've studied, the dozens of books, documentaries, oh my gosh, the dozens of hours, if not hundreds of hours, documentaries, reading, interviewing people, going to conferences and not only presenting, but listening to other people, meeting people like Linda through the generosity of Mark's podcast, Nightlight, just studying so much of this stuff. These black wetsuit type uniforms come up over and over again. So very, very interesting. What happened after? So Tanya and I didn't think much about it. We knew we had lost 2.5 hours of time. We didn't even know how to comprehend that. We had no idea what happened during that 2.5 hours of time. And so we kind of, we went back to our lives. We went to the Mothman Diner 1 or 2 more times that weekend. We had a wonderful time at the Lowe Hotel. I love the town dearly, and I felt this pull like I was going to tell the town stories. I didn't know what that meant. I spent not even 2 days there. We spent probably not even 30 hours in the town, but yet I was just so enamored. So flash forward to November, and we're on with our lives. We're both busy. We have 3 children. Taking care of the Holler House is a full-time job. The 3 acres. I'm running the theater company. I have my own copy editing business, all of that. So Amy Jo says, and let's go back to that here. The one on the right seems similar to what attacked me that I was trying to describe to you last week. And Amy Jo and I have had some similar which we didn't even realize. So whatever these things are, and they can manifest in different ways. It could look that they look like this. This was an interdimensional being. Those might be, but we don't know where these dark entities come from either. Nothing about this, and we did a whole episode with the regression, so I'm really going to gloss over that. I reposted it just a couple weeks ago, the night before the Mothman Festival. You're welcome to find it. It's Interdimensionals and Missing Time in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. You can find it on the YouTube channel. It's going to be gone from the Facebook. That's their new policy pretty soon. So they're really, really more and more changing the way they're doing things, but I'm not going to dwell on that. Anyhow, yeah. So we're in the Walmart parking lot. We're doing our shopping for us and our 3 kids. My phone, I guess Tanya's phone, I guess it was, because I really don't think that I had a cell phone in 2009. I really don't. But anyway, the Fricks call. And we heard about your experience. We'd really like to meet you. Could you come down? So, yeah, we can come down. So we meet them in November. We had missed the Mothman Festival, which was totally fine. And Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who, again, we're newbies. We know nothing. We don't know that probably by this time Rosemary's written 50 books. She's been like on any documentary or television show about the paranormal that matters, that's worth being on. Highly respected, toured around the world, spent a lot of time in England. We met her this weekend in November, and with the Fricks and a couple of other people, and retraced everything. And here's where we found out the really weird stuff. Again, just going to gloss over it. There was a gas station that I swore was there. It wasn't there, but it was there in another dimension, because I spent some time with it during our regression 10 years later. Anyhow, there was a cornfield on the right side, which we drew. Although we both remembered a cornfield on the left-hand side, there was a house there, and that house had been there for 20 or 30 years. So there certainly was not a cornfield there. So this spoke to different dimensions. The time coming back seemed to have taken so long, but it wasn't. So there's this time-space distortion. There's all this stuff. So the Fricks were very interested. Rosemary took an interest to the point where she then mentored us for the next 10 years, taught us what she knew, published some of our books, spent a lot of time in the holler, set up interviews for us and conferences, and it was just amazing. And Tanya and I have tried to carry on her work, do it the way that she believed that should be done, with a lot of integrity. She called us Renaissance investigators, and we're trying to live up to that with our presentation, the art and craft of modern investigation, and with our books and all. So at this point, I'm like, okay, the paranormal is studying us, so now I want to study it, because what happened during this 2.5 times, and what was going on, and why was there a gas station that's not even there in this plane, and why did all of these weird things happen to us? So Richard Hoddam's words, you notice them and they notice that you notice them. And that very much happened, as we found out. I call that the Mothman effect, but it's from the Mothman Prophecies film. Like I said, Rosemary became our mentor, and here are just a series of pictures. Folks on ERT Radio, check these out. Rosemary was amazing. Investigation we did at the Silver Bridge Memorial, always, no matter what we did, was with a lot of respect. Joe is smiling there, her husband. I'm so glad he's with us this night. Joe and I have become, Joe is one of my best, dearest friends in the entire world. We talk almost every week. It's rarely a day goes by that we aren't in communication. And I think Rosemary is extremely happy and may have had a hand in that, because Joe and I didn't really know each other or spend that much time together by the time they had gotten together. There's Rosemary and I on the left at the Mothman Festival. And then here's the weeping woman in the cemetery in Parkersburg, where you put your hands on her hands like Rosemary's doing, and you feel like you're being pulled forward in a vortex, like you're at the end of you're at the top of a steep hill on skis, and at that fulcrum moment you're going to be pulled forward anytime. And if you just went forward and somehow we're in a suspended animation, that's what that weeping woman is like. The one on the right there, Rosemary and I, this is Tanya and Tanya and Rosemary became very, very close, put on some events together, including Max the Crystal Skull, had Michelle Bowser and Laurie Osborne on the show a number of years ago, talking about crystal skulls, these 12 crystal skulls that are supposed to all come together at some point. Maybe we could use that now. Maybe I should be careful what I wish for. The one in the upper left is Rosemary and I doing field investigation in the Low Hotel. Tanya and Rosemary doing a Ouija session one night, which is kind of amazing. Tanya's grandmother came through and told the Frick brothers to stop fighting, welcome me to the family, which was really kind of nice. So just, yeah, a montage of pictures there. We're just talking over the paranormal. There's Rosemary and Tanya. Rain or snow, sleet, warm weather, cold weather. We were out there. We were in the igloos in the winter there. That's probably November, I would guess. Just trying to fact gather, just trying to do our work and do it in a good way. Rosemary wrote about the holler, about our 3 acres, the enchanted holler, in her book, Monsters of West Virginia. By the time Rosemary passed, she had written I think 62 or 64 books. Very prolific, always quality. I probably have about a third of her books. I go back to them all the time, but very honored. We're the final chapter in here, The Enchanted Holler. So there you go, moving right along. Here we go. The rest of this is going to go pretty quickly. But anyway, there was always lots to talk about, and there are our good friends, the Fricks, were in coming back full circle here. Carolyn Harris's Mothman Diner, all those pictures back behind our heads. Kids, and I'm sure adults too, had done these crayon and construction paper drawings of the Mothman, UFOs, all kinds of paranormal stuff, and they were just all around the diner, which was absolutely amazing. I've tried to do it proper justice in Mothman was here. I call Carolyn Connie. Carolyn actually had Mary Heyer had a niece called Connie, but I call Carolyn Connie in the book, and it's the Pleasant Hours Diner. We spent many pleasant hours there. On the left there, that's the lobby in front of the big pane window at the Low Hotel, where we spent hours upon hours talking about the paranormal in a circle there. Rosemary kind of holding court, everyone listening intently and puzzling through and talking. And there on the right there, what used to be Tiny's but became Village Pizza, the famous Mothman pizza with 2 red peppers for the eyes and the wings of mushrooms and the body of pepperoni. You have to do so. Yeah, a lot of good food, a lot of really late nights pouring over what came through the ghost box and what is going on. What an education. Tanya and I had amazing education and are so grateful for that. And then we started to get involved with the festival. So we went 2010, 2011, 2012. It had taken me 2.5 years, but I wrote a play, and I didn't want to write like Mothman was here is probably 75 to 80% factual. And then with some other stuff going on, different kinds of characters, name changes and things like that. But as far as the events for 66 and 67, at the core, all very factual. I wasn't there yet, 3 years into this experience. So I wrote something called the Kitchener County Menace. I created a mirror universe across the Ohio River. And in some of the books, this is the 10th book in the Stanton Chronicles, Mothman was here. Kitchener County is in there. And so I get to play with both. So now both are in the Stanton Chronicles, and it's this mirror universe. But if you think about Point Pleasant having this parallel dimension, who knows what's going on and what it's called and what the Mothman was called in other places. Mothman, I created a journalist that names the Mothman. He's under pressure. He's trying to make his career. He's in a room in the Low Hotel, which I call the Logan in Mothman was here. And Batman is flickering on the television as he's getting drunker and drunker with whiskey. And he looks across the street, and there's a street lamp, and a moth flutters in front of it. And he goes, Batman, Mothman. That's the name. Like, he had been trying for hours to come up with a name. There's different explanations about who named the Mothman, but it was probably capitalizing on Batman, which was wildly popular in 66. Because it didn't necessarily look like a moth. But anyway, so Rosemary was nice enough to be in the play. The Frick brothers, some other cool people. Susan Shepard. I was in Susan's film White Zombie. Went to a lot of Susan's lectures. We were colleagues. Have some of her books. Susan was a sensitive. Had grown up in the area. Great researcher, great storyteller, great writer. Susan is another person that we lost a number of years ago to cancer, and another person that is very, very missed. But you can see there on the thing, Joey Medea Mothman playwright preview. So then it was really off to the races as far as that went. Just briefly, Charles Humphreys. I met him. He was the Main Street director. He was head of economic development. Took a real interest in me. We met not in Point Pleasant, but we met at a creative conference. Somehow I told him I heard about Point Pleasant. I said, oh, I love that place and the river and all. And Charles tried to get the money to rehab the State Theater. That is a dream that is not how it died. Chris Reiser, who's the head of Main Street right now. Main Street has just become into possession of the State Theater, and there's hope for it yet. And so stay tuned, because I think there's really, really, really cool things coming. There's Charles. I got to see Charles last weekend. Charles is now retired. Well-earned rest. He raised some $9 million in grant money over the years for the Riverwalk. You can see some of the painting behind him there at the Riverwalk. That house directly behind us was a house that he got a bunch of money to rehab. Chris Reiser's getting the rest of the money to finish that house. I believe it's called the Kincaid House. It's super cool. We got to get a tour while it's in process, and that was very, very neat. And there is Charles also in the Battle of Point Pleasant, memorialized in those murals. So very cool, just like Bob. So we did our very, very first in 2018. Tanya and I did our very, very first presentation at the Mothman Festival as researchers. That's a picture from us. That's our Webb Memorial Library publicity photo. And it's called Ghostesses, Portals, and MIBs, Our Haunted Life So Far. I don't know, Joe, our daughter Joe sometimes watches the show. I don't know if she's here tonight or she'll watch it after the fact. But when she was young, that little young there, we were in Arkansas visiting family around Fort Smith. We were in the cemetery and it was twilight, and she was like, "Do you hear the drums? Do you hear the drums? The ghostesses are coming. The ghostesses are coming." So that's where ghostesses comes from, a little homage to our very psychically talented and otherwise talented daughter Joe. So some very cool people that we've met over the years. Brent Raids, who wrote the definitive biography of John Keel. I am working up John Keel for 2027. I'm going to announce that publicly tonight. Something I've been working on for a while, but all the pieces are falling into place. My Cyrus Avery Route 66 tour was just announced today. So on the road in 2026, then bringing it back to Point Pleasant, do a walking tour, hopefully write a play about 66, 67. I was working on a play that then became the novel, but the stories are still in me there. So Brent Rains, there's George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM, Chad Lewis and Kevin Nelson, Van Meter, and all kinds of other cryptids, and Nick Redfern, very, very well known. Nick was nice enough to write a back cover blurb for Watch Out for the Hallway. So we've just met very, very cool people. So much of it really owes to the generosity of Carolyn Harris, Bob Landrum, who took his time. Interesting, I'm not going to name the show, but if you ever watch a Mothman show and they're in the shop and they're talking to the guy and they get the map and they go down to the igloos, I had talked to the producers, told them our story, and they said, "Hey, well, what horrible things happened to you after?" And I said, "Nothing horrible. We've met all these amazing people. We get to do all these cool, amazing things. The paranormal is not all evil. It is not all dark." Just because it's the othering, which bothers me so much as a social justice, activist, this othering thing. And anyway, they lifted our first act and appended it onto someone else's story. So it is there. And I can't tell you how many TV producers and stuff we talk to. And once they know they don't have a good third act, some of our other stuff too, some of the stories in Watch Out for the Hallway, or from Roommates from Beyond, radio producers and stuff, or podcasts about paranormal things. Well, what are the answers? What happened? What was the evil? Well, these things don't always have answers. They rarely have answers. John Keel knew that. Rosemary knew that, who was mentored by Keel. So these things fall through. Let them fall through, I say, rather than compromise our integrity. That is not what Rosemary would want at all. So finishing up here as we're getting to the bottom of the hour. So the picture on the left there is the last time we saw Rosemary. Her and Joe were coming back across Ohio, and we met at a Cracker Barrel. We knew she wasn't feeling well. And the picture there was George Norrie. She was supposed to meet us in Cleveland. We had VIP tickets. She's going to introduce us to George. Stanton Friedman is there at the table. That was 3 days before he died. Rosemary wasn't able to make that. They replaced her. We went, we met George, gave him a copy of Watch Out for the Hallway. We were eventually on Coast to Coast AM with the absolutely stellar host, Richard. and it was wonderful to be on with Richard and be able to talk about Hallway and talk about Roommates from Beyond. So that was very good. Richard Serrett, very, very cool guy who I admire a lot. And anyhow, let me get back here. Yeah, there we go. So I was working in my office, and where we originally did our show. So people who've been watching, I think we're coming up on our 5th anniversary. So 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I was working in my office, and I was concentrating at the keyboard. And in order to do the work I do as an editor, writer, story analyst, and all, need to really, really concentrate. And my attention was getting pulled, which was really frustrating me. And I looked up, and at the time, the books are behind me now, behind this library thing here, but all Rosemary's books were there, and a black scrying mirror that Joe and her had made. They would make black scrying mirrors that we had bought from them at the festival, the last festival we were at together, I think in 2018. I look up, and Rosemary's there. She's in the room. And then she's gone. She fades away. So I immediately go into the living room where Tanya is, the next room over, and I say, "Babe, I think there's something really wrong with Rosemary. I think she's much sicker than we think, because she was just in my room here." So we contacted Joe, and sure enough, she was in hospice. She passed within a couple of days. So that was in July, and we were asked to shepherd a memorial, to host, to do that. So I did a talk about my work, and then later in the afternoon we did the memorial for Rosemary, and the Frick brothers spoke. Other people. It was very spontaneous. We showed a slideshow that just went on loop of pictures of us and other people, and she's just amazing. I will tell you that I was at the festival, and Rosemary would stand there and talk to people for hours, and no question was dumb. And she was a rock star. She's a Mick Jagger of the paranormal world. I mean, just an absolute, so well known, and treated everybody with respect, from newbies to veterans, and as long as you did things in a good way. As long as you weren't speaking gibberish or polluting the field or soiling the field. And there's plenty of that goes on. And Tanya and I distance ourselves from it, as Rosemary did. Always good. She had very, very high standards, and that's absolutely what was needed. At this point in my career, about 12 years into it or so, 11, 12 years into it, I really started to feel like Keel says in the Mothman prophecies, I'm no longer interested in the manifestations of the phenomena. I am pursuing the source of the phenomena itself. And that's what really, chase it to the day I die. We'll never have anything definitive. There I am doing my presentation, telling the story that I've told about the grandmother and the son, where she sees a gray alien and he sees a fairy. Just fascinating stuff. Will we ever get to a unified theory of this? I really don't know, because we just don't know what's going on, and that's what keeps me coming back. But I do know they noticed us. We underwent the regression. I had seen the deer thing, which was very similar to what Tanya described. She was taken into a classic craft. Like I said, just in the interest of time and not boring you all, go back and watch that episode, Interdimensionals and Missing Time in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. But here were the results of the regression. So I had always had a fascination with the trough, where elk man or elk shaman, anthropomorphic, a man in a costume, don't know, whatever it was, kind of. So that's what was standing next to Igloo 2, staring at us with those very oversized eyes there, which aren't dissimilar, I'm realizing, from what Tanya drew. What Tanya drew in her experience after the regression looked like the J-Rod, looked like the Zeta Reticulans, that Betty Hill, it was just recently the anniversary of the Betty and Barney Hill sightings, that Betty described, and that J-Rod was supposedly a gray that they had gotten possibly from the Roswell crash. 1947. So a lot going on there. That black box there that they were running over Tanya's body, Men in Black have been seen with that. I've just been revisiting Keel's book, Mothman Prophecies, and all, and talk about these things with wires coming out of it with the Men in Black and all that kind of stuff. That was one of my favorite things to write about in Mothman Was Here was the Men in Black, and I think you will particularly enjoy those sections as well. So the creative journey continues, and during COVID, I was asked to design the Mothman 66 escape room, which is a 5-star escape room. It's going very, very well. It was all but sold out last weekend. It wasn't open during the festival, but it's right upstairs from the Mothman Museum. Very, very proud of it. And we really pay homage to Mary Hyre. So a reproduction of what her door might have looked like corresponded the Athens Messenger. That's the first room you walk into. On the left, there's the actual building where her office used to be. I got some very cool spirit box stuff there about MIBs and other weirdness when I was there. I think we were there in 2021 because I was working on the found footage and doing more research. We stayed at the Low Hotel and all. I was working on the escape room, and there of course is Mary's Where the Waters Mingle. Again, that's the Kanawha and the Ohio rivers coming together. And the third room, the Wow room, I won't tell you too much about it, but if you solve all the puzzles and you get into that secret Wow third room, Mary Hyre was right. So and then of course Mothman Was Here, which just came out. It just debuted. I already showed you the picture with Richard Hodham and I. Mothman Was Here is done in special arrangement. It's based in part on the Mothman escape room. So any of the details in the Mothman escape room, from the found footage to Mary's office to the kind of typewriter she uses to things that you'll find in some of the other rooms, are all replicated in this book. It's kind of a companion, stands on its own. It's also the 10th book of the Stanton Chronicles, but it stands on its own. People can read it. There's going to be 3 other books. I'm already outlining now: Memories of the Mothman, then there'll be Mothman Says, and Echoes of the Mothman will be the 4 books. The first book centers on Mary Hyre. It's really an homage to her. Everybody always talks about Keel. A lot of people talk about Barker, but this is really her story. A reporter in a small town reporting on births and deaths, civic engagements, council meetings, which is how the book opens up for her. She's at a council meeting on Halloween night, a couple of weeks before the Mallet Scarberry sightings. So anyway, it's my homage to her. The second book is really an homage to Rosemary. You'll have to figure out who Rosemary is in the book. She has an alternate name in the book, which was a sensible thing to do. But I think you'll see that it's fairly easy to figure out even the origin of the name and certainly her. And the book is Bob is in there, and the character's name is Cash Presley. I already told you Carolyn is in there. So Point Pleasant brings together the people it needs to tell its story. And I'm sorry that I moved that picture up and cut that off, but I truly believe that is sort of my mantra about Point Pleasant. After 16 years, Point Pleasant brings the people together. It needs to tell its story. There are so many overlaps between Bill and Jackie Kuselis and Tanya and I. Interests, how we go about things, things in our lives, professional, otherwise, personal. Very honored to wear the t-shirt tonight. And there's Tanya and I down at the river. I took some liberties with our stories in some kind of cool ways. And there's something with the characters in the book. You'll know exactly who they are when you read it, but they're called Charlie and Shelley. Charlie and Shelley are down by the river where something special happens, and that's made up. But anyway, there are the pictures. And then the journey continues, because it does. There's really cool things happening in Point Pleasant. I had some really amazing conversations. Some things are in the works. So stay tuned for all of that. Next week, Tanya's going to be home. She's transitioning back home now for the winter. We'll tell you more about it as we go. But the next month, she's going to be away quite a bit. So I'm going to replay another cool Into the Outer Realms episode. I'll play another episode. That's Tanya and I, so you can be reminded of just how cool that is. And we'll go from there. So I'll post that, and then I'm going to come back with an Every Day is a Story all its own. But thank you all. I appreciate you being here with me tonight. Went just a little over an hour, which is good. That's a cool thing. Please, I'd be honored if let's see here. I need to take this out, and I need to bring me back in. Okay, there we go. I'd be honored if you read this book. It's available on Amazon. Anyhow, more to come there. The journey continues. Thank you all. Have an amazing night. Keep the faith. Keep your vibration high. Keep telling your day. Keep telling your own story. I keep telling people, you know, they're coming to me for advice and insight and all, which I'm very flattered about and honored, and I want to do right by them. Think micro. Don't think macro. The macro is very, very overwhelming right now. So take care of your family. Do the things that you love. I hope you have avocations as well as vocations. If you have hobbies, honor them, because they're every bit as valuable as a career. And I will see you. I will see you into the outer realms where the paranormal and the supernatural are just the normal and the natural. And I'll see you on Every Day is a Story all its own. Charles, thanks for checking in. I know you like the Into the Outer Realms brand, so I'm going to be bringing that to you guys again and go back and forth, because really storytelling is such a fundamental part of my research. It's hard to separate them. Anyway, I'm just having a good time. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I love the feedback, and we're going to keep going. So good night, everyone.